I'm Benjamin Hall, and I'm searching for heroes. There is a question many of us ask ourselves. If something terrible happened right in front of you or around you, are you running towards it to stop it, or are you running and hiding? Rich Fierro was in that position last November during a mass shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs, and he ran towards it. Not only that, but he brought down the shooter and saved countless lives, including his family and his friends. But that day he also lost people he knew, including his daughter's boyfriend, Raymond Vance. And today we talk both about why he ran towards the gunman, what made him do that, but also what difficulties it has brought along. But perhaps most importantly, Rich talks about how he has used this to motivate people around him, to try and find strength and positivity and freedom in what happened that day, and reminds us all that community is what drives us forward. Here is my conversation with Rich Fierro.
What I want is people to see somebody like me and my family at a gay club, just supporting other family members. I just think it's important because I'm a Latino, I'm machismo, I'm a vet, I'm a old man, like I'm not this new generation. And so those are the things that are important to me. And it matters that people see someone like me at a place like that, supporting family and then doing the things that we're, as soldiers and veterans, we just are supposed to do. This whole thing is, I went to war and I expected it. And I told the shooter this at his sentencing. I had more respect for the terrorists that I was fighting downrange than I did for him, because I was the enemy. I was their enemy. They had a target. They had someone they wanted to kill, and I had the same. So there was a mutual respect there because that's part of war. We expect to go and maybe get hurt, maybe get killed, but that's what you signed up for. But when I go home and in my backyard, I don't expect that to happen.
Rich, tell us about that night. What happened?
We had gone to, well, actually, I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which sounds really weird, but I had just driven back that Friday. I had been gone for a week with work and helping some soldiers down there do their training. And as soon as I got out of the Army, I went right back in as a contractor and started teaching. And now I work for Spacecom. So I have a sense of service, I guess, a duty that I feel like I participated in multiple conflicts, and hopefully I can pass on some of my knowledge to these kids behind me. But that's part of it. So I had just gotten back. My wife and I had our best friends, Chip and Joanne, had gotten COVID, so they were out. We hadn't seen each other in a month. And so we were like kind of itching to get back and hang out with Chip and Joe. Cassie said, "Hey, it's Wyatt's birthday tomorrow. He's doing a drag show." And Wyatt, my daughter, met in second grade. So this young man came into our life the first day of school. She went to school in the States because she grew up most of her life, well, half of her life at that time in Germany. So when she got back to the States in Fort Carson, Colorado, Wyatt was her first little friend in second grade, and they grew up together. They're still best of friends, and that's who we went to go support that night. So it was Wyatt's birthday. We went to dinner, myself, Jess, Raymond, my daughter, and Raymond and my daughter have been together for 6 years. So this was not like the kid that, she just started dating a month ago. He was 22. Same age as my daughter. And he had traveled with, we had just gotten back from Hawaii. He's gone everywhere with us. He was part of our family.
Felt like family. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Felt like family. Dude.
So that to us was very kind of important, that people understand that this was not just her boyfriend. This was her hopes and dreams. And, at some point they were thinking of literally at this moment, they were going to go back to San Diego together. She was on a break from school. And so that's why she was in town. And so we were all there. We were all going to go to this dinner and then, go to the show. And I had not been to Club Q. My wife and daughter had seen, Wyatt a few times before. I just hadn't had gone. So it was like a thing. Let's just go. All of us were going. And so we got in our cars and we all went to the dinner and we had a great time at dinner. I was joking with Raymond because my thing with Ray, he was a good young man. But I was trying to kind of show him the ropes because his dad's in a not really around. So it's funny. It's Colorado and we get snow, right? But it's not a New York snow. It's not a thick snow. It's 3-4 inches and then it melts. But my house faces the opposite way of the sun, so the driveway stays pretty icy. So we had gone on a trip and I'd come home. Actually, this was Fort Sill. Yeah, so I'd come home. And this is the second time I had seen my driveway was not shoveled and Raymond was in my house.
He'd done it.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, dude, you got to pick up the shovel and make this thing happen. And he was like, but I wasn't here. And I go, I don't care anymore. At this point, you live here damn near all the time. So it was important for me to kind of get that across to him. And that was our running joke was the shoveling of the snow. And coincidentally, the day of his ceremony, his funeral, his memorial, it snowed. So now for me and Cass, that snow is kind of a thing that I shared with Raymond just as a
it's tough. Hey?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of weird reminders. Time. Yeah. So anyway, we were going to the club. We went to the club. Me and Jess were the first ones there. And I wanted to sit like kind of off to the side, and Jess was like, no, we're going to watch Wyatt. We're going to sit right here. And we got a table for 5, but there's 6 of us. So Chip and Joanne were sharing the same chair. So she was sitting on his lap. And we've known Chip and Joanne since, well, when they just got married, they were newlyweds. They didn't have any kids, and now they have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. So we've watched them grow, as a family. And so they're just as close as our own brothers and sisters, me and Jess. So this was our whole Colorado family going to this club. And we were having a great time. Like, Jess has video. Like, Cassie had taken some video, and we were all doing a toast because Ray bought everybody shots because he didn't pay for dinner. And I was joking with my dinner. I'm like, dude, why are you getting all this, you're getting all these tacos and margaritas that you're not even eating or you're not paying. And he's like, oh no, sir. And my daughter told me to shut up, that, hey, Dad, you're going to pay. And I'm like, I know.
He still called you sir. Hey?
Yeah. So he was a good young man. And so when we went to the club, that's what he was doing. He bought us some shots, and I see that as a sign of respect. He reached out. He doesn't have much money. He works, he was working at Amazon. He was trying to get his life together, and he bought us a couple shots, and we were all excited. We were very happy. Probably one of the best nights we'd had in a long time. And then the main shooting, it was the picture of the guy coming in the door with his rifle up. That was what was really hard for us watching, at least in my family and for Chip and Joanne, because we knew what was on the other side of that picture. Yeah. Right. And nobody else in the world, everybody just looks at it as a guy with a gun, but it's the horror on the other side of that gun that nobody sees because nobody wants to show that. But that's what we lived.
Tell us about it, man. What happened?
Yeah. So we were sitting there and all of a sudden, and I heard and I smelled the rifle fire immediately, and I knew what it was because I'd been shot at before. But you can see it because I was facing away from the door, and I was watching my wife, daughter, and Joanne dancing, and I was sitting next to Chip. And once the shooting started, it's that smell, and I'm used to it because in the Army, I mean, hell, I was an artilleryman, so the cordite smell is huge because we do big giant bags of it.
Yeah. And you did 4 tours, right? So
3 in Iraq, and the last one was in Afghanistan. Yeah. And I've had IEDs blow up in our convoy and all that stuff, but this was at home, and when it started going off, Chip and I can't remember. I don't remember much of that initial incident, but we watched the video, and as soon as the firing started, we go to the ground. Chip flipped a table trying to protect. Get behind a table. And you can see Joanne and him both were shot. Everybody to the left if you would have drawn a line from the shooter to myself and my daughter, everybody to the left of us was shot. When he finished, stopped firing to turn to the other direction, myself, my daughter, and my wife were on the other side of that line. So the 3 of us were not shot.
How far away from you was he?
It'd probably be 6 feet, maybe. Like he was right behind us. Yeah, no, because he came down this. It's like a little hallway that runs down, like a walkway that runs down into the. So there's a bar area up top. When he first came in, he just opened up on that whole bar area and the glass was shattering everywhere. But then there's a second area where you walk down, and that's where the dance floor was. That's where that's where we were. Raymond had gone to the bar to buy us another round of shots. And it was funny because Michael, one of the bartenders, the only bartender to survive, told us, "I remember you." And I go, "Well, everybody remembers me. I'm the big Mexican guy in the club." And he goes, "Yeah, I remember you, but it was Raymond because he was ordering water. He wasn't drinking because he was driving my daughter home. So he was doing the respectful thing, but he was up there to get another water and shots for us." And I'm like, and so he was in that bar area when this person came in and just lit it up. And that he was killed immediately. He was probably the second or third person killed of the 5. And so, but we didn't know that. None of us knew anything. When this happened, we were on the ground. I went around to the back of the table, I guess, to check on Chip. And then I literally, as I'm like, I got to get up. I got to do something. I wasn't shot. I got to do something. I stood up and I fell. Like, it literally looked like, the cartoons where they slip on a banana. Like, I stood up and you can see me in the thing. My little feet flip out and I fall backwards into this bench of it's like bench seating. So I fall back into that, and I already got a bad back. So I was like, and I hit that thing, and I was like, oh, crap. I didn't know if I was going to be able to walk. I didn't know what was going on. And I look up, and I saw this guy, the back of him, going into the patio, and I can see people in the patio through the glass. Well, there was no glass there at that point because he had shot it out. But you could see people in front of him running.
Your wife had gone to the patio as well.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea. No. Right. So that this whole time, none of us knew where anybody was. I knew on the floor, when I got up, I had last seen Chip. That's the only person I remember.
And are people just running in every direction?
Yes.
Like everyone else just trying to get out.
Yeah. So, listen, I don't know how many bullets were actually fired, but he had a 60-round drum on his rifle. And when that drum hit the floor, it was empty. So you can only imagine that was when he stopped shooting. So we got, in 45 seconds, by the time Thomas got to him, at 45 seconds after he walked in that door, he had unloaded 60 rounds, killed 5, wounded 19 in 45 seconds. I seen him. I seen the back of him, and I knew I had to do something. I was capable. Yeah. And I tell everybody this, listen, once you're shot at, and you know this specifically, once you're shot at, you don't know how your body's going to respond. Yeah. Your body's, and some people they can't remember anything. Some people will shut down. Some people will hide. Some people will run. I had some of the bravest guys I thought were, studs at PT, and then I go down range and they're freaking out when they hear the first ping off the truck, and I'm like, dude, you're getting shot at. That's what we're here for. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, for some reason, for me, I'd already been shot, so I knew like I had to do something. There wasn't a period in my mind where I was like, uh-oh, I better run. That wasn't what I thought.
One of the things is about, and I've been looking for this the whole time, ever since, what happened to me, is why do some people find that strength and others don't? And I don't know if it's nature, nurture, how it's family amongst them, what is it? But when you're right at the receiving end of it, like, what made you? Like, why you and not other people?
Well, Thomas did the same thing. So Thomas jumped at him. I didn't even know he was fighting him. He got shot for this. So when this person was staring out the patio door, I didn't know my wife was on the other side. No idea. I didn't even know Derek, because Derek he had been shot and he's laying on the floor right under this guy's feet. And Derek ended up passing. I didn't see any of that. I just saw the back, he had his body armor on. I go, that's the enemy. I have to go stop that. I don't know. I didn't think through it. I just got up and ran across the thing and started jumping in there to fight him. And Thomas had at that point already grabbed his rifle, didn't remove it from him because he had it slung on his body, but he had burned his hand on the rifle. But at least it stopped him from reloading, because he came in with a rack of 6 mags of 45 per. He had 60 in the magazine when he started, and then he had 4 more magazines of 45 rounds for his pistol. This guy went in there to kill all of us. There was no stopping him. In his mind, everybody was going to die. And so when I ran over there, I didn't know he was fighting Thomas at that point. But in the video, as you watched it, as I'm running over, you can hear the pop when he fired at Thomas, and he shot Thomas in the chest. or in the kind of the diaphragm is where he ended up.
Who was Thomas again?
Thomas James was the first one to jump at him when this guy came was facing the patio. He was in the patio with folks, and he jumped at him there. And then when I got there, he was already engaged, but that's when he had gotten shot. And so he was falling to the ground, and we were all taking the shooter down to the ground at that point. So the three of us were fighting the shooter. And he was reaching for his weapons. He apparently had some kind of incendiary device, like a grenade-looking thing. And he had tried to fashion as a grenade. It was one of those stun poppers or whatever they do for the civilian guys. I don't know why anybody's selling grenades, but he had a grenade on him.
Yeah. He was going for his handgun, so you knew that
he already had it out. Yeah. So listen, it's dark. There's music playing. There's lights going. There's screaming. There's people that are. I mean, you can hear the shrills of people dying, and it was mayhem. But we knew we had to stop him. Like, period. And so when Thomas hit the floor, we all kind of went to the floor. This guy he kind of pulled himself out, and I think that's where his rifle got. His sling broke, but his rifle was never more than a foot away from him. Like, he could have picked that thing up. If he was able to pick it up and reload, he could have shot all of us again. What I didn't know, but what we saw in the video, was he pointed his pistol at me to try and shoot me, like straight in my face. And I did not know that because it was dark. And then for some reason, I remember scrambling for his pistol out of his hand, and then it ended up in my hand. And so I then started because it was empty. I knew it was empty. I wasn't going to be able to shoot him. So I just used his pistol as like you would with any other tool. And I just started chopping at him with it. And
right then you're thinking one thing as well. Just
I have to stop him. Yeah. This guy cannot get back up. If he gets back up, we're all dead. And the rifle was right there. It is right in front of him. And so I'm on his back, and I'm just wailing away on the back of his head with this pistol. And Thomas is laying there, and I knew he was hurt. I didn't know he was shot, but I kept telling him he was shot in the diaphragm. So when that pistol, when he fired at Thomas, that magazine fell out before it chambered a second round, because the second round would have been right into my face, but it never chambered. So I got lucky that magazine fell out before it chambered a second round, because it usually doesn't happen. You usually clip that second round and then the magazine falls and you're going to have one in the chamber still. So as he fired, that thing fell out, and it did not allow that thing to grab a second round. So his only pistol fire that he made was at Thomas, and he shot him in the diaphragm. And Thomas said, I guess, that it hit his rib and popped back out. So he had damage to his diaphragm, but it could have killed him had it not bounced off his rib. So he's on the ground in front of him with his feet towards the shooter's head. And I'm yelling at Thomas, kick this dude, and I'm cussing this whole time because the adrenaline was unreal.
You're also trying to get other people involved, right?
Yeah, so I'm yelling at people, call 911, come help me, kick this dude, come kick this dude. Because honestly, if I could have had everyone in that room jump on this dude, we would have. But again, I didn't know who was there. I didn't know who was alive, I didn't know anything, and it was dark. So I'm just telling people to call 911. I'm telling Thomas to kick this dude. I'm telling him, or the shooter, I'm going to kill you, to motivate myself. So myself and Thomas were for 6 minutes fighting. He was kicking him, and God bless him, because he was shot and he just kept going. And I was using the pistol to try and, the scene was...
How many people, like of all the people there, how many came to help?
No, it was just me and Thomas. And then at the end, just before the police came in, Drea, the young trans woman, had heard me yelling, help me kick this dude. I told her, I was yelling at people, this dude's getting tired. He can't kick anymore, because Thomas was shot, but I didn't know that. I just thought he was getting tired. It was 6 minutes. Nobody goes into a club getting ready for a 2-round fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not trained for this. I don't run every morning. I don't stay in shape for the 6-minute fight on a random night. So Drea actually went by us the first time, checked on her girlfriend, and then came back, and she lined up her foot and stomped the this dude, but stomped him in the face 5, 6 times. I don't know, 8 times. And that was when, as soon as she finished, the police, I saw the first spotlight on the rifle for the police coming in.
That was quite a quick return. I mean, the cops were there in.
It was so we fought for 6 minutes. Once they got their call, the 911 call, I think they were there 2 minutes after that. But we didn't see anybody in that club until 6 minutes after this thing started. Yeah. So for 45 seconds he was shooting, and then 6 minutes of me and Thomas fighting him, and then the police showed up.
And the next minute you're trying to run triage effectively. You're trying to say this guy needs help, that guy we need
well, so that's where so that's where it got a little weird for me. After the fight, and the cops could have shot me. I had a pistol, and I looked like Hannibal Lecter with just covered in blood, and I didn't realize it until my wife told me. But yeah, so they were restrained enough not to shoot me or Thomas, and so Thomas at that point ran out. I don't know how he did it, but he got up and he ran out. I went back to the table where I was sitting because I didn't know if my whole family was laying. I had no idea. I had no idea where my wife and daughter were. But mind you, we found out afterwards, Jess was 6 feet on the other side of the wall of me while this whole thing was going on. She was in the patio. And she was a millisecond from being the person that was shot in the Derek, because he was shot right behind her as she turned left into the patio. My daughter had crawled into a closet because her knee had blown out. She shattered her kneecap on the dance floor, falling to try and run. She crawled, 30 feet. And she told me afterwards, she's like, Dad, you used to make us do the low crawl, and that's all she could remember was low crawl. Just keep your head down and keep your head in the dirt. And I used to do that for fun with him. I didn't do it.
Funny, isn't it? The things that come back to you when you're in these.
And I tell you,
first of all, you're thinking that you've done your back in. Yeah. And then she's thinking low crawl, but actually you're acting. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And so she made her way into a closet, and it was her, Joshua, and Delusional hiding back there. And they had no idea this guy was going to come and just assassinate him right there in that closet. And you can hear my daughter go, my dad has PTSD. You can't deal with this. Like, she was worried about us. She wasn't worried about herself. And that's what I like as parents. That's all we could ever hope, is that our kids grow up to have that same sense of service to others, not to themselves. And that was it was a really beautiful thing. And so as soon as I got done with the fight and I got up and I ran over to where we were seated, and all I saw was Chip and Joanne was in a really bad way. But her arm was, I thought she was going to lose her arm because it was blown apart. Her bicep area was just gone. It was just bone. I was looking at her bone and a flap of meat. And then I saw her knees, and she was shot through her legs twice. But I didn't realize she was shot in her chest because it was on the opposite side of where I showed up to her. And Chip, I don't know if I walked over or ran, but Chip was holding pressure on her wound to her lung so that she wouldn't bleed out while his knees were shot out. So he was shot twice in the knee, or once in the knees, but it went through both knees. So he got shot twice with the same bullet, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yeah. And you're trying to orchestrate, Yeah. So I get over there, and again, this is all in our training. It's like you're on the actions on the objective. You deal with the wounded, you treat the wounded, and then you get them out of there, and then you start assessing the situation, what had happened, it was already secure. We knew that was the only shooter. So when I got off the guy, I didn't have to worry about, who else is coming to kill us. That wasn't the thing. It was about triage. It was about getting people back to where they need to be. So I'm yelling, telling cops, get on a body, get people out of here, bring in the ambulance, stop trying to secure this place. We got them. Come get these people out of here. And that went on for quite a while. And so I was yelling at cops, because you could see it in their eyes. They were so there was some of them who were just totally shocked, what is going on? Nobody had ever seen this kind of carnage. And I understand that, but you got to snap out of it. You're here to help, and you need to get in here and start putting tourniquets on people. So I had the first cop I saw put tourniquets on Joanne's arm, one on her arm, one on her leg, and she was in total shock. She didn't feel any of this stuff, but she was fading in and out. And so I'm telling her to stay, look at me, stay with me. I didn't want her to look at Chip because that's where her arm was laying, and I didn't want her to see her own wounds and then really freak out. So I'm turning her head, trying to keep her from looking over there. And Chip was like, dude, Rich, get her help. And So we put tourniquets on her leg, and then I had him put another tourniquet on her arm because I was like, she's going to lose her arm, but I don't want her to bleed out. So I told the guy, put another tourniquet on to seal that. Like, you're going to bleed out. That's where you die. It's not about the actual wound. It's about the arteries that are severed or whatever's coming out of there. So I put another tourniquet on her arm. I did not know she was shot in the chest, and she kept telling me, Rich, stop pushing on my chest. And I wasn't, but she was breathing and she could feel the pain. She thought it was me, but that was from the bullet that was in her. Chip, I told him after they got the tourniquets on Joanne, I said, put a tourniquet on Chip's knees. He's shot. I'd never seen a guy in that much pain. When they tightened that thing down, I mean, he folded like a one of those lawn chairs, just folded in pain. And I'm sitting there looking at my two best friends. I literally thought she was going to die. I looked at Chip and he goes, don't let her die. And he started reaching for her hand. And I said, Joanne, I'm going to put your hand in his hand. You're holding hands.
Yeah. I've read that too. I mean, was that just to encourage both of them? Was that to give her
no, I would hope.
Or do you think it could be a final goodbye and you wanted them to sort of be holding hands?
Yeah. Right. It was the only thing I can think of, because I didn't know she was going to make it. I really didn't. And she was fading in and out. And I looked at her, I looked at Chip, and I went, if this is the only thing I can do, then I'm doing it. Because she couldn't move her arm. And I couldn't get him to move anywhere because he was wounded. And so that was the only thing I could think of to get them both to kind of have some hope and move forward. I now like.
It does a lot, that. I mean,
it does.
Hope and strength gives people almost better recovery than anything else. If you show them what they're fighting for and what they've got, it's amazing how much that helps.
Well, and she's a mom. She was staying alive for her kids. She didn't, and God bless her. Like, she was in ICU for a week. They didn't know if they were going to be able to save her at all. And then it became, 4 or 5 hours later, I don't know if we're going to be able to save your arm. But they were able to piece her back together. And it was amazing. So at one point, while I'm sitting there yelling at everybody, telling the cops what to do and trying to help my friend get some kind of help, my wife had walked up, and I didn't realize this until we saw the video. She'd walked up, and I didn't want her to see her best friend in that way.
What was that moment? Because you probably didn't realize if she was alive or not.
I did not.
The minute you saw her,
the minute I saw her, I told her to back the F off, go stand over there. I don't want you to see this. You cannot see this, because my wife truly, Joanne is her best friend. They've gone through things in their lives that are they're very bonded. And so I didn't want her to see her in that way. So my instinct was to protect Jess and, hey, get over there. Don't come over here. I don't want you to see this. I don't want you to see this. And
did she move back?
She did. She stood there, and then my daughter came out of the closet, and at that point, the firefighter had finally gotten to Joanne, the paramedics.
We'll be back in a moment with Searching for Heroes. You mentioned family, a couple times. She was survived for her kids, and you just want to do anything to get yours. I remember when I was hit as well, it was my kids as well. Yeah. That's all I thought about. Yeah. Whatever it took. Like, I was there, leg gone, and I was like, whatever. Yeah. Just find the kids, get home to the kids. And you take everything else away and you're left with that one thing. Yeah. That's it. Family. Like, how do I protect? How do I get back to my family? I mean, it's just such a strength. And
I think that's why we were there, right? We were there to watch family. Wyatt was performing. It was a great performance. His boyfriend sang him happy birthday, and Daniel was killed. His boyfriend was killed. My daughter's boyfriend was killed. So these two best of friends, my daughter and Wyatt, went to junior prom together. She was already dating Raymond, but she said, no, I'm going with Wyatt. She went to junior prom with Wyatt. She went to senior prom with Ramon. Or Ramon. We call him Ramon because we're Latinos, so we changed Raymond into Ramon. So my wife always called him Ramon. And his mom laughs at it because she's like, who the hell is Ramon? And we were like, no, that's Raymond, because he was our family. Like, we have little names for everybody. So anyway, that's what it was all about, family, right? And I always, it wasn't what I thought about as I was fighting the guy. It was what I thought about as soon as I knew
family
it was safe.
It's like it's family for you. I get, you've shown that, but I mean, You were the only one, you and Thomas, the only ones who went and risked their own lives to stop this guy. And I wonder, what's the difference? What did you have that maybe others didn't? Is there a bravery? Was it the training that you had experienced? Like, why do some people have it and other people don't?
I don't know. And that's part of nature. And honestly, it's probably part of my flaws. I'm not a very good flight guy. I'm a very big fight guy, which is not good. And in a bar, when somebody hits on my wife, I'm ready to attack. Like I do not have that slow down thing anymore. And maybe it's from downrange, maybe it's not. Maybe I've always had it. I don't know. But that came in handy that night, right? So it wasn't about flight.
Do you think that should we be working to give younger people that? Should when you're raising kids, do they need that? Does it make a stronger community when everyone will stop to protect everyone? Like,
I don't know, because I don't want to live in a society where everybody's ready to fight. There's no way. And it's good to have people that run and people that hide, because that's preservation of life. They're worried about their families too, and nobody should be tested like this. I knew how I would respond only because I'd been shot at before. Everything was blanked out, and I was all about, let's go get the enemy. And it didn't matter. My own personal well-being was not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about all those guys that are around me, the folks that I'm leading. I got to get in there and make sure that they don't get hurt. And
that's straight out of military. I mean,
but that's also out of family. Like when I was growing up, my dad always told us, he goes, and my mom and dad are still together. I'm 46, so they've been together 47 years. I've been with Jessica for 32 years. Like it's ingrained in us. As much as we would, I don't know, are the values that we have matched as family members with the military for me, because it was about everyone else and not yourself. My dad always told us, hey, your mom and your brother are the only two that are going to be there for you forever. Mom can throw me out of this house tomorrow, and I'm out of here. I'm no longer your dad. Or I am your dad, I'm just not here. And I was like, it's profound. When you think about it, those are the only two that are left, is your mom and whatever siblings you got. And for me, it was my brother. And I think it just carried over into the military.
Interesting, because you've also said, that you said you served, you fought. So you're doing the tricky stuff because you hope your kids don't have to. Absolutely.
And I want these kids to do whatever the hell they want. They have access. I didn't have access. I had an encyclopedia set that went from A to F, because that's all my mom could afford. And that's what my world consisted of. That's how I learned. I had a typewriter. I didn't have all this access to information. My daughter, my kids, they look at things in a totally different way than I ever would have at their age. At 22, we were just trying to figure out, what are we doing tomorrow? I'm in the Army. I'm just like, holy, I got to follow orders and do my thing. It was a safe thing. They're out there like flying by the seat of their pants, just making stuff happen. And I admire that, because that's what America's about, right? And that's what we fought for, was for these kids to do whatever they want. We cannot marginalize them for thinking in different ways.
Did you ever encourage them to join the military? Did you ever think that?
No. Listen, I only joined because that was a job right out of college. And they paid for college. I wasn't expecting to go to college. I thought I was going to be a carpenter. Me and Jess had our son when we were 16, 17. So I was not expecting to go to college. I was not expecting to be an officer. I was not ever going to join the military. I was just like, I need a job. And they offered to pay for the scholarship. And I'm like, okay, that gets my college done. I'll be the first one to graduate college in my family. Let's do it. And then I'll go into the Army. I got a job. Like, you're telling me 5 days after I've got a paycheck? Yeah, I'm in. It was the safest thing for me to do.
Because, I mean, perhaps the training that you learned, that saved lives that day. And so there's nothing but positivity in it. And yet you're still sort of suggesting that maybe the military, what is only right for people who don't have other options?
I mean, honestly, that's what my formations usually were. There's only a few folks that go, hey, I want in. Now, when 9/11 happened, yeah, absolutely. There was a rush of folks that just wanted to help.
Everyone wants,
But there's a thing with the military. I mean, it takes away a lot of your freedoms, because you are now part of the system. And so you gotta play ball. And that playing ball doesn't mean, I can go smoke weed or do whatever, like, as these kids do now. And so that changes things. And I had guys that were in that I'm like, dude, you can't be here no more. You're a threat. Like everybody always says that every soldier's a hero. And I'm like, no, there's some really bad folks that make their way in and they need to go away too. We'll put them in jail or we send them out of the military. So
it's funny because when you look at kids and how you raise them, then you need to have some rules, some restrictions. Like don't go off and smoke pot and do these things, but not as many as you were given in the military. Like where's the boundary between how many regulations?
I don't know. And I get that. That makes sense what you're saying, but I don't know. I feel like I want all the freedom I need, but I also hold myself accountable for stuff, everything. I'm responsible for it. And that I think is what's lacking with a lot of folks now is about accountability and responsibility for your own actions, your own thoughts, and your own discussion. If you're going to say something, and you better be able to back it up, right? And so for me, I always said, I tell every reporter, I don't know, I don't have an opinion on nothing because my opinion doesn't matter. My opinion only matters when I'm in a ballot box, right? So that's when folks need to figure it out on their own. But we can't do this as, you can be the loud voice in the room, but not everybody's going to pay attention to you, nor does it matter. It doesn't change anything. If you're not, if you're not in your local politics, if you're not a council member, if you're not a mayor, you're really not going to change anything. You're just going to be the loud voice in the room and nobody cares. But make some change if you want to make things change,
I wonder if every generation thinks that the one after them is just weaker and not as community bound. I think my dad probably did. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they did. They definitely did.
I think the same thing.
Yeah.
But I do worry nowadays. I worry because of the internet, and I worry because people don't go and interact anymore. And I wonder because, you live on social media, you're missing community. And like what you did that day, that's about family and community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am worried that perhaps people don't have such a sense of community nowadays. Kids don't. And then maybe we're not there for each other. We're not there to help each other. And that is worrying, perhaps.
Yes. No, and I agree with you. And I tell folks this all the time. Everywhere I go, I'm like, hello, how are you? But my name's Rich. Let's talk. Yeah. And I'm at Costco or wherever, just random people. I will interact with anybody. And I said at one of these things, had somebody maybe seen this kid before he was, went into this club to kill all of us at Walmart that day and shook his hand or said, hey man, how you doing? Maybe he would have felt some kind of community, a sense of people care about him. And maybe you wouldn't have done this, right? But our answer is always post, what can we take away? No, how about you reach your hand out and shake your hand of your neighbor, and hopefully that will make things better. The social media thing, I don't play the game. I have a Facebook because that's how I talk to my family when when I was downrange. So I have that account and I use it, but only for positive stuff. My voice doesn't matter online. And I recognize that, but I don't think other people do. I think everybody thinks that their voice, now that they're able to broadcast it to the world, matters. And it doesn't.
Yeah. You mentioned, you mentioned the shooter that day, and I don't even think it's worth mentioning their names. They should just be disappeared. Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting what you said. Like, when you look at him and the hatred that he had for LGBTQ and the reason that he did this, I mean, is that a pure sense of evil, or is that, something that went wrong in his life? And I don't know if you've thought about it and you've thought about what drove him. What are your thoughts? And this is not specific to him. There is a sense out there, for some reason, that folks are getting this mentality of, it's like that wannabe soldier. I'm a soldier from my couch. No, you're not. Half these folks running around. My dad was drafted in Vietnam, went and served, did his year. He never really talked about it. And he's always been kind of, we always knew it affected him really differently. But he served, right? And we got people that draft dodge and all this. Now they want to be all about America because, that's cool. But you didn't serve. You didn't raise your hand for your community. You did not say, I will suffer for those around me. And I look at the press, and that's why everybody's like, oh, the media, this, and that. I go, no. These folks are out there trying to get the word out, whatever that word is. And folks like you get injured, right? Like, those things happen because you put yourself in a position to serve your community, and you end up with repercussions from that.
I'm screwed up in my head. And that's because I served my community. I went downrange. I seen things I shouldn't have. My mind is not the same as it was before. My wife told me every time I redeployed, like, you're a different guy each and every time.
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, she said also in the past, that she was really worried that this episode may have triggered some PTSD.
Oh, no, it did. Definitely did.
And I wonder if you can explain, first of all, like, the PTSD that you experienced beforehand, and then what this did to it. There's
a guilt. So, and I said this too. Everybody's like, oh, you're a hero. You saved lives. I go, no, we lost 5. We didn't save 5 people. And those 5 people mattered. People were shot. Their lives are changed forever. So, I mean, we met a couple that was behind us that we never met before. He was shot through his throat. Lived. I don't know how you live with that, my mental strain is more guilt, more, I think that's my biggest thing with downrange for me as an officer. You put people in positions to where they did get killed, where they did get shot at, and injured, because you have to make a decision to send them in. And so there's a guilt that rides with that. There's a sense of, did I do enough? Right? Did I shortchange somebody? And so I think that is what that PTSD thing is it's more about guilt that you didn't do enough.
You know what? I mean, I've been getting awards over the last year for bravery and for, you're doing this, you're out there, you're doing amazing things. And I feel exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Like, the 4 other guys didn't come back.
Yeah.
Like, why am I getting awards?
Yeah.
Like, that's not for the work I did. That's just for surviving. And I totally feel you, man. That's a tricky place to be. And you speak to perhaps I speak to the family members of those who didn't come back, and they've lost something forever. Like my injuries don't matter at all. Like, they're irrelevant compared to those, like, shot in the throat as well, or those who didn't come back. And I don't know. It's a strange place. Now, you said before, you're not a hero, and everyone keeps calling you a hero.
Yeah, I'm not. Everybody in that room that night was a hero, right? Chip saved his wife by putting pressure on her while he was shot. My wife was in a corner covering Svetlana, and her and Michael were trying to keep someone else alive. Didn't know if this guy was going to come in, and she saw the rifle go into that patio, and then it stopped.
You talk about sort of the survivors as well. They're all heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, are you close to them? Like, when you share that with people, like, how did that
so so this was a really weird situation. So this guy pled guilty, and so our court case was done in 6 months. Button on it, everybody's like, move on, and that's not how it works. And we, thank God, we haven't gotten dragged through years of litigation.
So that's why. So you never had the trial where you got to talk and hold him to account for, he did this, then he did this. None of that happened.
No.
That must leave a vacuum for you.
It does. And that's why for me and my wife, we went and watched all the video footage because we wanted to know what happened.
But that is what the CCTV.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, this guy had 30 cameras in there. Yeah.
And how was that when you made that decision? Like, what?
We didn't know. I kept telling Jess, like, no, we don't need to watch it. We don't need to watch it. We had seen the fight portion. There's literally a video right on top of me and James as Thomas as we fought this guy the whole time. So that's how I know the guy tried to shoot me, because I did not see that in the dark, but the video camera is in that gray, night vision. And so you see the whole thing, and you can take the time to look at, and how long it took for the first. And again, I was at the bottom of the dance floor with Joanne and Chip, and there was, people shot at the front door. So the firefighters paramedics may have been working on folks just trying to get down to where Joanne was that 20 minutes. So I don't fault them for it. They may have been trying, as they walk in, another body, take them out, and they just keep going from there. So I don't fault anybody for anything. I just, in my mindset, that video for us was a closure of, we didn't watch anything in the bar. Me and Jess decided not to watch where Raymond was shot because we didn't want to see that. So we didn't watch anything in the bar. But Jess wanted to know, hey, what was going on outside when I was out? Like, we seen her in the parking lot, and she had no idea she was in that parking lot. Like, she had come out and then went back in. And it's just one of those things where you just needed to know what you were doing, what was going on. I didn't know I had seen my wife and daughter before I got thrown in that police car.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what gave us closure. But there was no accounting for this guy, and because he pled out. So he got 2,000 years. He's never coming out. That's not, that's the good thing. But
what would you say to him?
I did say to him, when we sentenced this guy, I told him he was worse than the terrorist that I fought downrange. I said, you are a coward that I have zero respect for because you came in to kill. And we talked about this earlier. When you're downrange, you have, I'm a target, they're a target. There's a sense of play here that makes sense. Even as you, like in the press, you're like, I'm in a dangerous area. I should expect something to happen. I'm going to try and protect myself, but I know I'm in a spot where this could happen. You don't go to the club to do that, And when you come in there and just to kill, the lowest form of life, I could not. And I told him that. And my wife told him that, hey, I don't care who you are. We all got a chance to say our piece. I took probably a month of writing my little speech out to him because I really wanted to say some things. And I posted it on my little Facebook for people to see because I thought it was important.
What's the Facebook page?
Mine,
address?
Just mine. Yeah, my regular one. And then I posted it because I wanted people to see the letter or what I wrote because it wasn't televised. They don't televise when they sentence these guys. So it was a personal thing, but I also wanted people to understand how I saw this person.
We'll be back in a moment with Searching for Heroes. How's your daughter doing?
So that's the hard one for me, and because you were just talking about that, their lives are changed forever, right? That was. It's very hard for us to look at her every day and see the progress she's making and then see the times when she has meltdowns and just the sadness. I think the fact that her dreams were taken from her so brutally, I don't know how you deal with it. I literally look at Jess all the time and I go, can you imagine me or you losing each other at 22? I can't, I don't know how I would go forward. And she met Raymond the same way that I met Jess. We were in junior high. And they had this love, we're high school kids, you're in and out of a relationship, but you ended up with each other.
So what does recovery look like?
I don't know.
How do you do day by day? Is it therapy? Do you do therapy?
I do.
What do you do?
I do everything in its brother. I do massage therapy. I've done acupuncture. I've gone to hypnotists. I've done, I go every week to VA. I go to see my mental health doc. I'm on meds. I do all that stuff. Because
what are you trying to get rid? What are you specifically? Are you trying to stop, or
I'm trying to manage?
To get over?
I'm trying to manage my anger, because I think for me, all my feelings manifest as anger. I get pissed off at the little things, and I told this story. The one time I finally realized I actually had a problem, I told the girls before I went, and I was still in the Army. I said, "Hey, turn the lights off before you go to bed. I'm going to bed. Turn the lights off before you go to bed." So I went to bed. Everybody went to bed at some point. I came downstairs at 5:30 in the morning for PT, so I was getting ready to go, and all the lights were on. And I wanted to go and wake everyone up. How disrespectful this was. It was the worst. And I'm talking about what? A penny in energy? Like it's trivial. There's no reason I should be that upset over light bulbs being on. But that's how it manifests itself for me. And I have to control that because I don't want to be that person that does something stupid and ruins either my family's lives or my life, because it can happen. And so it took me years, just God bless her, at least for the 15 years I was in, I know I was screwed up, but it took me at least another 5 years after I got out to finally go get help again because I wasn't managing it well. And so I did, and I thought I had it managed under control. I was actually in a really good place, for a few years right before this happened. And then it was funny because the VA reached out to me. They're like, do you need anything, mental health, whatever? And I said, sign me up. I'm doing it. Because it was almost like preventative for me. I didn't want to wait like I did the last time where I almost lost my marriage, and I probably still am in that window of I may lose my marriage. Who knows? But I wanted to try and do something proactive this time to get ahead of my anger and manage it so that I'm not doing something stupid.
I wonder then, you look at this overall, and I wonder, like, is there more that we could be doing before? Like, either before people, go on the front line, or even when they're young. Like, how do we create a society of people who and prepare them for difficult things? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's part of it, right? Because everybody stuffs it down and nobody wants to talk about it. And that's the reason I've been very open about, I do go seek out help. Because honestly, you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I don't need no help. I got everything under control.
Yeah.
And I finally realized that help, though it doesn't solve everything, it at least allows me to manage my feelings, manage my emotions, so that I'm not doing things that I regret, down the road. Again, there's so many different ways to prepare, and I think it's important for people to do that. Every single person out there is going to deal with tragedy. Every single person. And you have to be in a position to manage the emotions for the
I guess what can be really hard is going through something that seems life-changing, that is so difficult, and then trying to find some positives, trying to find silver linings, trying to find some way that you can take that and use it to either help others or encourage others or use that to motivate one. I wonder if you feel that too. Like, do you know what happened is terrible. Your own experience was terrible, but are you using that to try and bring positive change?
Well, yeah. So my wife and I, when we started our brewery in 2018, she consciously said, "Hey, the tagline is diversity. It's on tap. We want to welcome folks into our brewery, everybody, and a safe space for every race, gender, color, culture, religion. We didn't care. Everybody's there."
And you have, by the way, some great merchandise that everyone needs to look at. On Atravita Beer Company.
We did. We shut it down because it was out of control for us. But
too many. But I'm just saying, people need to be supporting you guys as well.
I appreciate that.
That's essential too.
Yeah. So, but that's what we've been trying to do, is really kind of bring community together. After this shooting, when we opened our doors, there was a line out the door, and it was amazing. The community, Colorado Springs community, is amazing people. But there were people that had never met a trans person in their life that was in that line next to a trans person. It was amazing to see, because that was everything that we had wanted to do. And the positive out of this tragic event is that our community is better for it. We kind of we went into a mode of caring for people instead of caring what people are doing. We just wanted to care for people. And I think that if that continues, that's how you solve a lot of problems, is just let people be them. And as long as they're not hurting anybody, we can all get along and get through this thing. And I think that's the positive that comes out of this whole thing. I've met people that I've never would have met in my life, right? But they're amazing. That the Colorado Springs Pride Parade, they asked me to Grand Marshal. I'm a hetero male dude, and I'm pretty, my wife will tell you I'm pretty backwards in my thinking a lot. I'm a what is it, machismo? I got a lot of that, right? I'd be really happy if my wife would stay home and just make tortillas all day, but she won't. She wants to, she's doing all her making her dreams come true, and my daughters, and that's amazing. But that's how I think. And they open their arms to me to be the Grand Marshal for their parade. Meanwhile, the rest of the society is trying to marginalize them. I'm like, dude, what are we doing? When people that are getting marginalized are really opening up their arms to you, maybe you should reach out your hand and shake that hand and see what happens. So I think it was an amazing thing. The Springs Pride Parade maybe had 5,000 people every year, and this year it was like 15,000. And that's not people that flew in to go to this parade. That's our community showing up.
And I think that's exactly how we finished chatting today. I mean, you take, you look around, you see what's going on, and you remember the community is everything. The working together is everything. The helping each other is everything. You are someone who did that. And, I hope more people can do it too. At the beginning, I asked why some people run towards gunfire and others run away from it. And it was very clear why Rich ran towards it. He was saving family and his military training. And those two just kicked in. But what was far more interesting was him saying that he doesn't want to live in a world where everyone does run towards the guns, or in a world, as he said, where everyone is a fighter. And honestly, I always thought that everyone should run towards it, should try and stop that. But for the first time ever, speaking to Rich, I heard the idea that maybe the beauty about community is that there are so many different people in it, and each one brings something different. So for those who don't run towards it, can they be there to help those who did, help those who were injured, help in other ways? So look, it was a real pleasure speaking to Rich today, and I think that it's something that reminds us that the point of us being here is to work together, recognize that people can be different. But again, more than anything else, it's to help your community, wherever, whenever you can, and whichever different kind of way you can. Each kind, as Rich would say, is important, is vital. And so don't dismiss those who do it differently. Thanks for listening to Searching for Heroes. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcasts Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.